they are also on the brink of elimination here. Okay, so I want to debate this topic. Should the Celtics break up the duo of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown if they lose this series to the 76ers? Okay. And Zay, I believe because I went the first time, I'm gonna pass it to you here.
Well, I believe it's time for Jaylen Brown to be a star player somewhere, to be the number one option somewhere, in my opinion. I feel like it's been like that for some time now. I thought when Jaylen Brown, I believe it was 2 seasons ago, when he started to develop his dribbling habits, when he started to be a better isolation player, I saw him being better than Jayson Tatum already because he plays defense. I think he was a tenacious defender. He was able to guard the best players on opposing teams 2 seasons ago. And I thought once he picked up his isolation habits, he started to dribble better. He started to score more efficiently. He was already at the level or even above Jayson Tatum. Tatum was a big shot maker, of course. Can't take that away from him, but he's very erratic on most games. He misses a lot of shots, and he's a very high-volume scorer, whereas Jaylen Brown picks and chooses his shots, and he's very highly efficient. He can get 30 points on 15 shot attempts, whereas Tatum gets 30 on 25, 26. So I think, that's something that I see as Jaylen Brown. I think it is his time to move on and move forward. Do the Celtics break it up themselves? I don't think so, because they know how important Jaylen Brown is. I think they would rather sacrifice the entire roster than to remove Tatum and Brown, because they know how special of a player Brown is, and they already, have their money set on Jayson Tatum. They don't want to lose Brown for nothing, nor do they want to remove him from Tatum, especially how dynamic that duo is. It's probably the best duo they've had in quite some time, probably since the 80s. With Bird in them. So this is going to be an interesting situation. What happens this offseason? Season not over yet for them, of course. They still could win 2 games against Philly. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is officially done. I think the biggest issue or the biggest question for me is, what do they do with Joe Mazzulla, who has shown he cannot really get this roster where they need to be and what they need to be for the playoffs. I think that's going to be their biggest question in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here. So, Zay, you don't believe they should break them up? Or
I'm sorry. I believe they should. I believe they should.
Okay. I don't believe they should. But I would agree with you, Zay, that last point that you made is my alternative here. I think the main issue is they got to fire Coach Mazzulla. And when you reflect back to that game 4, I believe it was 19 seconds that they had to play with to try to win the game with a basket, right? And he watched that whole clock dwindle to 0.
Yeah.
With a timeout in his back pocket and didn't use it. Like that right there in a nutshell. You got to be fired off of that. Almost like literally. And he's getting out coached by Doc Rivers. Let's think about that for a second too. That's another thing. He's getting out coached by Doc Rivers. That's another thing. But also, I think when you talk about the Celtics, it's not about breaking them up. They already shown last year that they can make a finals. It's about maturing. That's the problem that I always had with Boston. They have the talent. They have the depth. Once Miami beat the Bucks in 5 games, listen, they should have smelled blood in the water. Like, who in this Eastern Conference, now that the Bucks are gone, could beat us? Like, we owned the 76ers. Right. Like, we beat them 3-0 in the regular season. We beat them in the playoff matches. We owned them. We should be able to win the series in 5 games, right? We should be able to beat the next whoever we got to play on the Knicks or the Heat in the next series, right? The Heat, remember the Heat series last year? It went to 7 games. They lost Oladipo. They lost Hero, so they literally are worse a team on paper than last year that took the Celtics to 7 games, and the Celtics got better on paper since that, right? They added more depth. So they have no killer instinct, and they're very immature. Jaylen Brown in that game 4, he made a rookie play, leaving James Harden open on the 3-point line. He had about 30 points in this game. It's not like he was like the ghost Harden that we are accustomed to seeing in the playoffs. It was the Harden that was actually showing up and had about 30 points, left him to double up on Embiid and allow him to shoot a wide open 3 to essentially win the game. And that's a play you expect a rookie to make. Bad gamble, bad decision making. Jayson Tatum, okay, because I believe yesterday he had about 30. He had a 30-point game, if I'm not mistaken. But the stats don't tell the whole story. He was like 0 for 6 for like his second straight game in the first quarter. I remember the same song last year. He has to be better to start the game.
Right.
Like he has to be. He's highly inefficient. Okay. And some of the 30 points that he had put up be the ugliest 30 points you can find in the book. He needs to start faster. Jaylen Brown needs to be more involved in the fourth quarter. And they need a new coach. And I think if they can tweak those little nuances and just mature and play better and not live and die by the three, they're becoming a 3-point shooting team. Literally. Like, I believe they were 12 for 38 or something like that. And they're 1-4 in playoff games when they failed to hit at least 39% of their triples. They are becoming a 3-point shooting team. They have to change a few things, but I don't think it starts by breaking them up. And I'm going to leave it there.
Right. Well, man, listen, let me tell you like this here. From a cap perspective, because they just made first team and second team, it's going to be hard to keep both of them together, man. They're going to be paying a lot of bread. From my understanding, that's something like almost $300 million each, 250 and 300. It's going to be a crazy number because they just made NBA first team and second team. So from that perspective, it don't look good. Now, we're talking about a Boston team or organization that's been trying to get rid of Brown for like 3 years straight. Okay, so what to make think that they're not going to do that now, especially with the money on the table? You understand what I'm saying? Organizations don't always make wise decisions. They just don't. And this might be one of those decisions that they're going to make. They're probably going to regret, because I do not think Brown is going to stay if they don't win a championship. If they don't win a championship, I don't think Boston's going to sell out $300 million each for these players and keep Brown, because they've been trying to get rid of Brown for 3 years straight. But let's go down to the basics. Heart over talent, right? Because I think if to fix this nuance with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it's heart over talent. Do you want the person with the most heart leading your team, or do you want the person with the most talent leading your team? Jayson Tatum, from a physical attributes, got more talent than Jaylen Brown, but Brown got more heart. And me, personally, I want the person with the heart. Hart got to be the best person on his team. He got to lead the team. The problem is they keep letting Tatum lead the team. He don't got the heart. He got the talent. He don't got the heart. Brown got to be the face of the franchise. Jaylen Brown got more heart than Jayson Tatum. And if they was to switch that nuance and let this dude be the leader of the team and be the face of the franchise, Tatum will follow Brown instead of Brown following Tatum. That slow start that Tatum get off to all the time, that shuts the team down. Let Jaylen Brown lead the team right in the locker room, from the coaches, from the organization, from the GM, from the owner, and the team will then follow suit. This team is being led by Jayson Tatum, and that's why they keep getting let down. Last year in the NBA Finals, Tatum was the guy. He had bad games. They went sideways. Brown got to be the guy, and Tatum got to be his sidekick. That's just my opinion. That's the way I see it. But if the answer to the question in a nutshell, I don't think they're going to stay together from a cap perspective. And I don't think Boston respects Jaylen Brown like that. Otherwise, they'll put him at the number one player.
Yes. Go ahead.
I would say real quick, I think because the biggest issue for me with the Boston Celtics, I think the reason why they should break it up is because they need a point guard. That's something they've been devoid of for quite some time now. Their best point guard in the last 20 years, you could argue, is Rajon Rondo, and they haven't had a point guard in that caliber since. I think they need a floor general, a guy who's going to be able to call things out, because Tatum can't be the guy dribbling the ball up the court and trying to find guys open, trying to be the primary scorer, primary playmaker. It doesn't work like that. You need a floor general. They need to go back to the basics. And that's why I think Brown becomes a good trade piece and trade value, because you could get a high caliber, star caliber point guard for Jaylen Brown. And I think Jaylen Brown will pay dividends for that, because he goes to a team where he could be the guy. He could be the number one option. I think Jaylen Brown is his time is due. He developed his game. He learned how to play isolation, shot create, dribble. He knows he plays defense already. I never left. Even when he got an offensive game, his defense never left. And that's a key component of his game. And I think it's good that he has that, because now you can move him for a star caliber point guard, which they need. I've been saying this before. I could see Trae Young playing in Boston because they need a point guard, and you still don't lose scoring. You still get the playmaking plus the scoring, but you get a guy who's a floor general, guys who can see the floor really well and gets his teammates involved. I think Tatum, he can't be the all-around guy. It can't happen. He can't be that point forward that they all want him to be. It's exhausting. It's tiring. On top of that, he has to be the leader. He's the face of the franchise. And they don't, like you said, don't respect Jaylen Brown like that. No. So they should break it up in that regard, because you're already exhausting Tatum all the way down to the point where he might get injured because he's doing way too much on the basketball floor as it is.
Now, I hear a lot of Jaylen Brown needs his own team. My thing here is, do you want your own team or do you want to win a championship? Because, I think that's for Brown to decide. Because if I'm Brown, I want to win a championship. And the Celtics give me the best opportunity to do so. If, let's say, I'm involved in a trade, then I'm going to a team, unless a 3-team deal, unless we have a 3-team deal here, I'm going to a team that's losing a star coming back to the Boston. Literally. So do I want to win a championship or do I want my own team? Do I want to make the Supermax on a championship team? Like, think about the mistake that Kevin Durant made. Hello? I need the people in the crowd say amen. Think about the mistake that he made when he was on the Warriors. He had an opportunity not only to compete for championships and win another ring, he had an opportunity to make the Supermax. He decided that he wanted his own team. He went over to Brooklyn. And guess what? He's no longer in Brooklyn. He's in Phoenix. Okay. So, Jaylen Brown, if you have the opportunity to make a Supermax and be part of a championship organization, I mean, is this even a debate? It all comes back to the Celtics' perspective and front office and what they want to do. And I think this is where it makes things hard and interesting because they haven't shown Brown that respect. Or they're going to gift wrap them the Supermax and say, all right, we're going to respect you now. We want you a part of our team. Or are they going to use this opportunity to break the duo up, the expensive duo that's going to be very expensive? And that's up to them. Me personally, they don't have to do it now. They don't have to break them up after the series. I'm going to tell you why. Because let's say, looking ahead, that Jaylen Brown stays, they get a Supermax money, then they could trade him 2 years later. Let's say they don't like what they see. You're not winning the championship, they could trade him. Jaylen Brown is only going to get better. There's still going to be a market for him. He's still young. You could trade him. I think if you're Jaylen Brown, also, let's say things don't work. Maybe you ask for a trade 2 years in a deal like most of these cats do. They take the money, then they ask for a trade a year or two later. And whether it's Jaylen Brown asks for a trade or the Celtics trying to trade him 2 years into the Supermax, they can get something for Jaylen Brown regardless to the alternative way. So they can still end up with your trade package later on. That doesn't mean they have to pull the plug today. And that's why I'm gonna leave it.
Real quick, I want to ask him real quick. I'm sorry. Devil's advocate. Jaylen Brown, when they lose games and he's not getting the ball in the second half, in his mind, he's like, do I want to stay on this team when I'm not getting the ball down the line when I know I could score the basketball? When they got weaker defenders on him and he's not getting the basketball, do I want to stay on this team because I know I can impact the floor more than just being a ruse, a disguise on the floor? Like, I could be the guy to score the basketball, and I think I could be the guy that could lead a championship team opposed to just riding the coattails of somebody else down the stretch. So that's maybe something he's thinking about as well.
I want to respond to that. You could be Keanu Reeves. I'll be Al Pacino here. I think for me, that's where coaching comes into play, and that's why I go back to how I started. My alternative angle is to fire Coach Mazzulla and get a coach in there, and hopefully that coach can trust more into Jaylen Brown and allow him to be, an integral part of these fourth-quarter situations.
Here's the thing. Maybe coaching could correct that. That's possible. But I'm just going to tell you like this. The way we talking about this, we are disrespecting Jaylen Brown. Why can't he be number one over Tatum? Why we're not saying that? You see, when you use Kevin Durant was perfect because Kevin Durant with Golden State. We all understood he probably had the most talent. You could say he was the best player, but the most important player was Steph Curry because that's leadership. And I don't think Jayson Tatum is that dude. He's not made up that stuff. Jaylen Brown is. And I want to follow that guy. I don't want to follow that guy. I'm not following the Kevin Durant, but I follow a Steph Curry. I'm not following Kevin Durant. He's not a leader. He just got super talent. That's Jayson Tatum. I'm not following Jayson Tatum. He got a lot of talent, but he's not a leader. Jaylen Brown is. He got heart. And I think the organization or coach need to highlight him as number one.
And my last point, and then I'm officially done on this topic, is when you look ahead, right? Because obviously this is a question that we could look in the present and in the future. When you look into the future of the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee's going through their own phase. They fired their coach, Mike Budenholzer. There's not a guarantee that they get the right coach that could lead them to a championship, right? Who knows what James Harden is going to do? Is it, okay, we made the Eastern Conference Finals or finals. Okay, I'm going to stay and sign a new contract to stay with the team? Is he flirting with Houston? Do we even buy that theory? So there's a lot of questions throughout. The Cavaliers, they can't get better. Like, this version of the Cavaliers is going to be the same version of the Cavaliers next year unless they up their games. The Eastern Conference is wide open. The Celtics should be the favorites. Well, not now because they on the brink of elimination, but going forward, they still should be right up there to come out. So, I'm not ready to hit the panic button or the demolition mode and, to pull the plug on a duo, but they do have a lot of tough decisions to make, and let's see which one they choose to do.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.